Brett Okamoto in Abu Dhabi alongside Daniel Cormier for UFC. What are we on here?
294.
UFC 294.
Yeah, we getting up there.
And I wanted to say UFC 284, but the reason I want to say that is that was the last time we had Islam Makhachev fight Alexander Volkanovski in a very different circumstance. Very, very different circumstance. We are here in Abu Dhabi. Last time was Perth. How was your flight over? I saw your Instagram story. You said you're fancy.
Dude, did you see me? I had
champagne. Drink champagne?
I had my finger up. Did you see that? They hooked me up. I was in a beautiful business class seat. They had a bar on the airplane. It was perfect.
Really?
They treated me the way I was supposed to be treated.
You like champagne? You're a champagne drinker now?
I don't drink champagne unless I'm in the right situation. You know what I'm saying? If I'm in a beautiful situation, I might sip a little bubbly.
How's your jet lag? You feeling okay?
I'm good, man. I don't get tired. As long as I got video games, FC 24, EA Sports, as long as I got it, I'm in business. And I got the new UFC 5, right? I'm on the game. It don't come out for another month. I got it. So I'm going to be the best to ever play it. So.
You just sat down with Alexander Volkanovski for your mediocre YouTube channel.
Mediocre?
What's it called? The Check-In?
Oh, my
the check-in
God.
with
DC Check-In. You love those.
It was actually pretty good.
You love the DC Check-Ins.
What was your takeaway from Alex Volkanovski after talking to him?
Confidence. I mean, confident. As confident as you can be, especially under some tough circumstances. But if there's anyone that can do this, man, it is Alexander Volkanovski. He is the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And when we watch him compete, you get the idea that he can fight as long as you will allow him to. So if he only has to do 5 rounds, you could imagine that he's ready to do that getting off the couch.
Yeah.
He's that good, man. And I think we see him evolve every time. From fight 1 to fight 3 against Holloway, obviously, that was very evident.
For sure.
But then fighting Islam the way he did and then doing what he did to Yair Rodriguez, it just shows you that this man has improved every time he goes into the gym, and then he shows those improvements when he steps into the octagon.
Yeah, operating on absolutely all cylinders. But you asked, one of the first questions you asked him, and it was kind of like along my thinking as well, is I understand why you take this fight.
Yeah.
I get it. You get an opportunity. You get it thrown at you. He was always going to say yes.
He was going to say yes.
But I am of the opinion that because he's Alex Volkanovski and because he has looked so good, the UFC was going to give him
at
this
some
fight.
point he would get it.
The UFC was going to give it to him. So you didn't have to take it under these
have to do it now.
circumstances. If you were his guy advising him, would you have told him to take this fight?
You know, if I'm being completely honest, I would have said, hold off. Let's get a fair opportunity. Let's get our full camp. Let's get a chance to go out there and do what we did the last time with all the information that we gathered in the first fight. This time, you cannot put all that into play, but he did say one thing, Brett. He said, during all of my camps now, when I'm training or in between camps, I say, well, Islam did this, right? So let's work on this. Make sure that he goes, oh, well, Islam did this. So it's like even when he's preparing for everybody else, he still kind of has his mind set on Islam. So Islam's never far away from his mind. And I believe that he knew that it was going to be Charles. He thinks Justin Gaethje was going to be next, so he thought the opportunity may pass him by.
Yep.
So he jumped on it. But I would have probably waited because he is Alexander Volkanovski, and he is pound-for-pound number 1, and it doesn't look like guys are going to be able to beat him at 145, if we're being honest. Yeah. Now, love Ilia Topuria, and I'm interested to see what happens. But if we are going on the knowledge that we have, it seems like he's up against it.
It's always a tough decision to make, and that's why the sport is so fascinating in between fights.
But imagine if he gets it done.
You get this opportunity.
But imagine if he gets it done.
Of course.
Imagine if he gets it done.
Sometimes, well, not sometimes, oftentimes, you know, every weekend we see a fight, and what do these guys say? They're like, how are you going to celebrate? I'm going to be in the gym the next day. I never heard that about Daniel Cormier. Were you in the gym the next day?
In the beginning.
Yeah, were you?
In the beginning. I would fight on Saturday, back to the gym on Monday. But the fights were easy. Once the fights got harder, it's almost impossible to be back in the gym on Monday. People tell you that. They may be back in the gym, but they're in the gym with their belt getting patted on the back by all of their teammates. They're not training.
And that's why I was going to ask you the question, is because Alex says, you know, he had minor elbow surgery right after that last fight. And then he's like, oh, I've been in the gym. I've never take time off. I've even been sparring for the last 4 weeks, which I thought was insane. But take me into like the mind of a fighter. If you don't have something booked, even if you're in there sparring, like what percentage of him is he? Like,
it's light.
What can we expect? Like if it's 100% Alex Volkanovski in February, what percent is he going into this one?
I bet we're going to see about a 75% Alexander Volkanovski because he's that good. He's that good. And in 5 days, he said he had 5 hard days. And in those 5 days, you feel a switch. You
Yeah.
feel a switch in your body. You feel a switch in your weight. You feel a switch in your mind. It all changes in that first week of training camp. But you're sparring, but you're light sparring, right? At AK, we had a thing called the red room. You never got hurt in the red room because you were going light. Guys got hurt in sparring when we had to go inside the cage. Red room, you're doing 10 rounds, but you're doing 10 rounds. You're in front of a man for 10 rounds. You're hitting him. You're kicking. You're working on technique. You're trying new things. And I believe that's the type of sparring that Volkanovski was doing. So while it may not have been at the intensity level that you have when you have a fight camp, you're still in there with a man in front of you, sparring with them, throwing punches at a moving target and working on things, and free. Oh, my goodness, it's so free. Because in that red room, Cain Velasquez is not trying to take your head off.
Yeah.
He's just kind of touching you.
Yeah.
Still hurts,
Yeah.
but he's just kind of touching you. So you feel more free to try things.
Yeah. Last thing on the main event, because I'm sure you know Charlie. He's probably got his ear to the door making sure that we wrap up here pretty soon.
That dude is crazy.
After the first fight between Alex and Islam, I remember distinctly being backstage talking to Alex, and it was like one of those situations, and this happens a lot when a guy loses because you guys are so competitive, but he's like, let me go back out there right now. I know what I did. Let me go back out there right now. I'll fix it. I know that that's real in his head. Is that the reality, though? Like, is he going to go out there with these, like, oh, I just know if I just do this. But, Islam is also a smart guy as well.
Yes.
Like, do you know what I'm saying here? Like, this confidence that Alex has of, like, dude, now that I've done it, I can get it done. Is that real?
I think it's real in his mind because there's a part of him that realizes I could have given more in this fight. But when you're fighting someone for the first time, it's all guessing. You guess at how good he is in grappling. You guess at how good he is in striking. He knows now. He knows that he can compete with him in the stand-up. He knows that Islam can compete with him in the stand-up, and he also knows that he can wrestle with Islam, right? So all this information now is rooted in knowledge of doing it. And I think that lends itself to him going, I want to fight this dude.
Yeah.
It has to be him because I feel like I can beat him. I was not of the belief that he won the first fight. And he'll tell you that right to my face. I thought he lost the fight 3-2.
Yep.
But it was competitive. And I think when you have a guy like Makhachev who has dominated for so long in a competitive fight, it lends to the idea that he lost. Because the optics are so different from what you have seen prior. And Volk is taking a lot of confidence from it, but I think Islam will be more prepared for the challenge in front of him this time.
I just wonder, like, as I'm watching this fight, it's going to be fascinating because I just saw that, like, belief that Alex had that, like, oh, yeah, I know the blueprint now. I know the answers. And if he gets out there and those answers aren't working again, then how does he adjust?
Well, he'll adjust.
Then, I'm sure he will because he's one of the best.
He's a professor, man. He's like that should be his nickname, the professor.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the professor, Alexander Volkanovski.
One last thing, co-main event, and because it's only Wednesday, so we're going to have time to talk about this. The only thing I'll ask you about Kamaru Usman and Khamzat Chimaev is what fascinates you the most. You're a wrestling guy, so maybe there's some wrestling components of this, but then the short notice nature of it as well, the mindsets. What is the most fascinating thing to you about this fight? And then we'll talk about it later on in the week.
I just think that it's a crossroads fight, if there's ever been one. Kamaru Usman up at 185 with the idea that he can be the champion there. Sean Strickland has opened up a whole new world of opportunity for guys at middleweight. And he's at this intersection of he's going to either go forward into something else great or he's going to have to go back down to 170, work his way back to a champion that's beaten him twice. Khamzat Chimaev is on the verge of superstardom. He has crossed every single obstacle. He has met and beat every challenge. Now he gets a former champion, a guy that was at one point considered the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. One fight removed from fighting for the belt that he was in the weight class. I like to make the parallel to Sean O'Malley with Piotr Jan, right? Even though many thought Sean lost, you knew he belonged up there now. Khamzat, we still got to find out if he belongs up there. Sure, he beat Gilbert Burns, right? So you know he's one of the better welterweights in the world. But if you beat the former champ, it's all systems go for this dude in what many believe is a favorable matchup against the new champ, Sean Strickland. So it's like, I think it's a crossroads fight, man. And I believe that in those types of environments, in those types of situations, you get the absolute best of both fighters. You're going to get a Kamaru Usman that's motivated, driven to go do something great. and you're going to get a Khamzat Chimaev that is just Khamzat Chimaev. He's out of his damn mind.
Yeah, I can't wait. Cannot wait for that co-main event. Can't wait for the whole card. Nice job breaking down the card. 24 hours removed from the flight, and make sure you're watching the check-in. I was lying. It's better than mediocre. Even though, like, when you ask Alexander Volkanovski a question, are you listening to the answer, or are you just concentrating on the golf swing? Like, you don't even hear a single word he says.
I listen, but sometimes my mind drifts.
I kind of wish I could see what was going on in your mind sometimes.
Tweety Bird's like floating over my head. I'm 44 years old, and I had a fight career and a wrestling career, so at times I might drift.
It's a lot of fun, man. Stay tuned to the ESPN MMA channel. We'll be here all week. Thanks for watching.